Welcome to episode 60 of the Animorphs read-along broadcast. Today we are talking about book 52, The Sacrifice. This is the last ghost-written book, and like a lot of ghost-written books, I have mixed feelings about it. In terms of what actually happens in this book, like looking at the plot, this book is crazy, but sort of the nitty-gritty details of the book are kind of inconsistent and all over the place. Getting this close to the end where we really have this very limited time left with the Animorphs, I feel like I have the right to be picky. Like, no, I don't want another scene of the Animorphs explaining the invasion to the military. I'd rather have a scene where maybe we see Tobias being disconcerted by Rachel's aggressive enthusiasm. But okay. Shit has gotten real, and now the Yeerks have taken over part of the metro stations, and they are basically forcing people down onto these subways at gunpoint and taking them straight to the Yeerk pool. It is like Yeerk assembly line. This is bad news, obviously, but the Animorphs are like, hey, what if we could use this to blow up the Yeerk pool? Or the plot of book 43 revisited. There's also sort of a subplot of Axe being secretly in contact with the Andalites, basically being instructed to let Earth fall so that the Andalites can just blow up Earth and destroy the Yeerks that way. This is the 6th Axe book. Like, to see him sort of go so far back in the Andalite direction in this book was kind of like, I mean, Axe says a lot of really harsh things about the other Animorphs. My hatred for Cassie began to extend to them all. They were fools. They would never prevail. They were too soft, too sentimental, too childish, too stupid and ignorant. Axe does have the right to be frustrated. I mean, things with the Animorphs are bad. Tensions are running high. In fact, Axe says relationships were changing, loyalties were shifting. There were unspoken animosities and hidden agendas. This is kind of the atmosphere of what's going on right now. And so Axe sort of reverts back to this, God, humans, man. But I think by the end of the book, those frustrations turn back into sort of a grudging admiration. Axe is working through his feelings about Cassie throughout the whole book, and there's actually a really nice moment whenever he is talking with Tobias, and he says, "Do you hate Cassie?" "I don't hate anybody," Tobias said calmly. "It's strange, but right now I don't even hate the Yeerks. It's like they're trying to survive, and we're trying to survive. I'm not really sure why it has to be an either-or thing." I think this is an aspect of Tobias's character that has been really subtly done and really consistently done throughout the entire series. Tobias is always able to see the other side of the perspective. It's not from the same kind of like emotional, moral place as Cassie, but I think he has this ability to see gray areas and see complexity. I love Tobias. So Axe working through his feelings with Cassie is one big part of this book. I think the other big sort of character thing is Axe's perception of Rachel. I thought Axe's sort of malevolence towards Rachel was a little bit overdone, maybe a little bit out of character, but basically the point that we're supposed to take away is Rachel's craziness is getting worse and everyone's kind of starting to worry about her. Axe actually towards the beginning says, "I resolved to tell Jake that Rachel was unfit for missions without him. Her eagerness to fight was getting to be too much." And we do see that happening over and over again with Rachel in this book. But yeah, I think some of the details of how this was done in this book were kind of flawed, but overall, big picture, the war going public and the Animorphs fleeing their homes and everything has really made this Rachel situation worse. And we actually see Rachel kind of break down and crying with her mom. And Axe said, "Perhaps Rachel, like me, suddenly realized that the gulf between the present and her childhood was an abyss of loss." This book was so hit or miss for me, but I thought that was a good moment. Sort of this dragged out plot of them breaking into this place to steal bombs and putting the bombs on a subway. And then it's Marco, Cassie, and Axe ride the subway into the Yeerk pool and activate the bombs, and then everyone leaves. At the end of all this, the Yeerk pool is gone, and there's literally a giant crater where downtown used to be. Hundreds of thousands of lives have been lost. Yeerk, human, Hork-Bajir-Taxon. And Marco says, "The saddest thing is that this is our greatest victory, and I've never felt more depressed in my entire life." When they're deciding who's going to go on the train to the Yeerk pool and who's not, there's actually this really sweet moment. In spite of the fact that we were all facing almost certain death, somehow it began to feel like old times, before the war had gotten so terribly ugly. Somehow the rifts were beginning to mend. The Animorphs were a team again. This was a nice moment because this book was depressing and everything does feel so messed up. So just to have that brief, like, chemistry where the gang was back together and everyone didn't hate each other. It was nice. I'm tempted to go through like a play-by-play of every sentence in this book that I thought was stupid or out of character or didn't make sense, but I don't have time for that, and I'm trying to stay positive as we approach the end of the series. But in some ways I almost feel like the mixed, kind of muddled quality of this book sort of helps to inform the mixed and muddled emotional tone of this book. So it kind of worked. I don't know. But yeah, there's only 2 books left, and they're both written by Applegate, so that is awesome, even though they're both wildly depressing. So yeah, those are all my thoughts about Animorphs number 52, The Sacrifice. Sorry I was gone for 2 weeks. I got overwhelmed with grad school, and I really wanted to sort of be able to dedicate the proper amount of time to reading these last 3 books. But the next book is book number 53, The Answer, and I will be reviewing it on Monday.